Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows. Nobody has the faintest idea. The best guesses are lies. You may be sure of it.
So today I had Elana Freeland on the podcast, and I thought I would do a little introduction. A lot of her conversations I've noticed have been censored online, and it's really hard to find her website anymore and things like that. And there are a few people who are making documentaries about geoengineering who have pulled some of her interviews or just chosen not to release them due to censorship. And even though I am a small platform, I've dealt with a lot of censorship so far and shadow banning, lots of videos removed. My TikTok account was banned, and I've also had a lot of videos pulled off of YouTube for different reasons. And so it's frustrating, the censorship that's going on. And I don't agree with everything Elana says, just like I don't agree with a lot of things that most of my guests say, but it's fun to give people a platform and to explore how they think. And she has been going pretty deep into this geoengineering subject and MK Ultra and the deep state and a lot of other issues where she looks at ritual abuse and targeted individuals and invasive electromagnetic weaponry. And a lot of subject matter that she speaks to is eye-opening for people if they've never dove into it. So she's written many books, and she has a really interesting YouTube channel and Odyssey and other channels out there where you can find her work, which I will put in the show notes. So just take it with a grain of salt, listen to her speak with an open mind, and go and research for yourself. This is an interesting subject matter. Enjoy the episode, and please don't forget to rate the show if you like it and share it. It helps people to discover the show. Thank you. All right, Elana Freeland, appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Yeah, it really is an honor. I've been following your work, and you seem to be one of the only people I can find that's actually written books on some of the subject matter that I think a lot of people are starting to become aware of, but they don't know where to go for a lot of the resources. And you've spent years and years diving into this stuff, and you have the ability to articulate it. So I'm really grateful to have you here and start to introduce some of your ideas and perspectives to more people.
Good. Yes, I think it's bizarre that I'm writing so many books. I've written 5 books now on basically about geoengineering, the part that is absolutely absent from any public dissemination from the government or the military. And there's a reason for that, because this geoengineering that we're undergoing now since the 90s is really part of a weapon system, a very sophisticated weapon system that makes the atomic bomb look like kindergarten. And I'm very serious about that. So I think if I can possibly awaken people in an era where most people don't read, I mean, truthfully, Ryan, I'm under no illusion about that. Everybody wants it in a pill form, in a bumper sticker form, in an easy answer form, and I simply cannot provide that. And so I turned to my skill. I have 2 skills, an oral skill and I have a written skill. I turned to my written skill because I figured in 50 years, I'll give it that long. In 50 years, people, the ones left, the actual human beings left, will wonder why we didn't do something about this much sooner. At least that's the way I see it. And I'm not here to be a fearmonger. To me, it's different. There is someone in the geoengineering movement, I won't mention his name, but I consider him very much a fearmonger.
Mm-hmm.
I am primarily giving out information about this technology, which is multi-leveled. we tend to think of geoengineering as only the weather engineering. And at last, we're realizing that's really going on. We still have it in very simple terms, but it's about a lot more than weather engineering. It's a weapon system, and it's based around the ionospheric heaters that I write about. It has a very an amazing system, very sophisticated, and I don't expect everybody to understand all that, but to understand that we're living in the midst of it, in the very core of it. And that will help us to make decisions about our lifestyle and our children's, how we raise our children to prepare them for a very different world than I grew up in. So, I'm doing my little tiny bit because truth has a great deal of power that the power mongers simply do not have.
Yeah, there's something to the way that you speak, and I really appreciate it because when people start to become aware of this stuff, the reason that people aren't aware of it and that they don't read books is by design, as you know. And we're going to dive into some of that Brave New World component of the Soma effect that's been working so well since the 1950s or so, even further back to the beginning of the education system. But I'd love to start with a little bit of your message of hope and how you stay grounded in your approach to all of this, because a lot of human beings that I care deeply about, and my family members, my friends, especially the ones that are starting to become aware of all this stuff since COVID. And that really started to peel the blindfold off of a lot of folks with how corrupt and how deep this stuff can go. How have you maintained a message of hope and to stay grounded and to still feel like you have a spiritual component to it, so that we can give people some context as to how to approach the subject matter while still maintaining the ability to not be overwhelmed by fear? Because a lot of what I've been seeing with the release of the Epstein files and just the blatant admitting with the WEF and what they're doing, they're not really hiding it anymore. It's just out in the open. And I think that seems to be one of the moves that is being played, is to just use force and show how forceful they can be and sophisticated they can be in their power, and keep people feeling sort of helpless. And so I'd love to hear how you've approached this. And you've probably been alienated and lost friends and family members and loved ones, but you've had this oath for truth. And I appreciate that about you. So let's dive into a little bit of your own personal psychology and spirituality. And I know you were a Steiner fan and teacher. So let's talk about some of that first to give people that base.
Very good idea, Ryan, because it is rare, and part of it is my age, right? I'm 78. I'm doing very well. Nothing hurts. I am aging, but because I was a 60s person who made the early decision that I wouldn't go the drug route, I was able to be in the 60s generation for the best of it, which was the political movement, the spiritual movement, and a tremendous brotherhood that we had that was remarkable, just remarkable. And I suppose I would have to begin to just, I was raised as an Eastern European child in Detroit, Michigan, in a 5 square blocks of Eastern Europeans working, pretty much having escaped Eastern Europe and the Soviet control of the 50s, and had come to America to work on the assembly line at Ford Motor and General Motors, etc., to make money to send home to relatives who were literally starving and under crushing tyranny. So our neighborhood was just such a wonderful place because we had Hungarians, Romanians, Russians, Ukrainians, Latvians, everybody from Eastern Europe. And it was 5 square blocks. And we children, we were all poor. My grandmother rented a little plot of land, very small, like a backyard, about 2 bus rides away. And we grew all our vegetables there. And then we would go to the farmer's market in downtown Detroit and buy live chickens that she would put into a carrier, and you'd hear the chickens in the bus. And my grandmother was a fantastic cook, could take, a bone from an animal and create a fantastic stew or soup. And it's one of my best memories of making everything from scratch. And very, very few dairy products, very little meat, mostly vegetables, and that's how we lived. So for me, I started out natural. I think that's really important here. I really know what it is to live naturally in a big city.
Mm-hmm.
We were also culturally still intact in a sort of combined way of all these different Eastern European cultures. And we rented space for cheap in large buildings and had bingo games, dances, marriages, all of these things. And so I started out in a community, a bit of a not very American community, and natural food, a very controlled lifestyle, no electronics. We had no TV. I was allowed to listen to radio shows for children on Saturdays. And I would listen. I couldn't see them, but that built a tremendous imagination that I still have. And that's what I notice in Americans in general. They have no imagination. That's why they depend upon someone telling them what to do. Ironically, in a country that talks about individualism, talks about freedom, talks about independence, and doesn't have any. I've always been amazed. And then the last thing I'll mention about the neighborhood was the men. The men were hardworking, labor-type guys, simple guys, not very educated, but they had such a love for their family and their children. They were very emotional. They were very musical. They danced in line dances and drank too much beer, like once a week. And they'd have big fist fights. They'd get angry at each other, and then they'd beg forgiveness and hug each other and kiss each other on the mouth.
Yeah.
These were the men I grew up with in those early years. And I've never really gotten used to the American version of manhood. I really don't understand it. It seems very hard driving, very lonely and isolating. Men seemed like cardboard to me when I was younger. Just seemed not like the real men I had known. Not that they were perfect. They were not perfect. But they definitely were highly different from American men.
Yeah.
So I started out there. And I think that was a big help, because then when the 60s happened, I was prepared for back to the land. I mean, we were experimenting we didn't want anything to do with what we called the establishment, capital E. We didn't want the industrial lifestyle. We didn't want the flashy cars and and all the money and the career and all of these things that have been sort of made up by Western culture to give people purpose and make them great commodity buyers and debt. people in debt all the time. No, we didn't want any of that. So the 60s were very natural. We grew our own food. We used transportation together. We didn't each have a car. Most of us had no car and very little money. We had a brotherhood. We helped each other, and we helped poor people when it came along. But it was all to do with our philosophy. It wasn't to do with some vague idea of being successful. And so that was the other plus for me, to keep me in nature, with people, and with the right values. I had the right values. I had problems. Don't get me wrong. I had problems from things in my childhood. Primarily, I think now, because my father, until I was 60, I did not realize this, but I found out by accident that he had been a Navy intelligence scientist. He was a lieutenant, and he was pretty crazy. And I think he was an early MK Ultra. It would be my best guess. He certainly had a split personality, one personality not knowing what the other personality was doing. And I fell into that as a victim. So I had to find a way out of that. And at first I had to remember that anything had happened to me. But I could tell by my behavior sometimes, particularly around men, that there was something wrong with me. I needed to dig into big gaping holes in my childhood. So that's the other thing, is I tried to go to a therapist. I guess once my mother sent me one-to-one when I was a teenager. And then I tried one on my own, but both of them tried to get in my pants and take advantage of what they found out about me with my father. So I went on my own, and I read a lot of books, because I've always been a great reader and a great comprehender. And I worked on myself for years. And I would say by the time I was 45, I had finally remembered something that had happened. And then I knew the story. And I was able to confront my father. And though he denied it, the personality denying it, not probably remembering the personality that had done these things to me, I never hated him. I felt like both of us were sort of caught in the Cold War. The Cold War had all sorts of things about it that were defining patriotism as self-abuse for many people who sacrificed their children, sacrificed themselves for the sake of fighting the Russians and blah, blah, blah. So I encountered a lie that quite early in my life, and realized, my God, they can sell that lie easily.
What
with
age
all
were
this
you
mass media.
when you discovered that lie and you started really digging in and doing that self-work? How old were you?
That particular lie about the Cold War, I would say 20, well, it was the three assassinations that did it for me.
Yeah.
I call it the three kings,
Yeah.
John F. Kennedy, CIA,
Yeah.
Martin Luther King, CIA, Robert Kennedy, CIA. I learned early that we had a shadow government running the nation. So I was maybe 22.
Yeah. Wow.
And because of my generation, because of the ones in my generation that I was drawn to, I was educated, I was beautiful, I was friendly, and a hard worker. So I ended up with what I call the phalanx of the 60s generation, the ones that didn't fall for the drugs and didn't, when the CIA put the bad drugs in the street, And they did. They organized it very nicely for themselves. Uh, I was already out of that. I had tried marijuana. I'd gotten bizarrely. I ended up in a CIA blind experiment of LSD. And I'm sure that that's one of the reasons that they have records on me, is I was one of the experimentees when I was going to Wayne State University in Detroit. And so I fell into some things through my own naivete and lack of knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but I pretty much stayed separate from all organizations. All organizations. I wanted nothing to do, because I couldn't figure out what they were really about. And
Yeah.
I think that was a very good instinct that I had. So after the 60s, and then life goes on, and I'm still working on myself, and I'm still reading very broadly. And I went to University of Michigan. I went to 5 universities before I finally graduated from Hilo College in Hilo, Hawaii. I was on the Big Island for around 4 years, off and on. And I was more and more. It was the '60s were over, and I was figuring out what to do. I came across Rudolf Steiner,
Mm.
and that was when I was on my way. I had I had booked a passage on a ship uh, to go to China. I had been studying Chinese medicine. I studied it for 6 years, uh, but I'd only been studying a few years at that point. And I had been macrobiotic. I'd gotten very involved in macrobiotics, which is a whole other story. Wonderful, wonderful diet. I think I probably was headed for diabetes and maybe other problems, because I was just sort of eating a mindless American diet for a while after the 60s were over. Wasn't thinking. And I got involved in macrobiotics, which is based on Chinese medicine, actually. And I'm still macrobiotic. It's been 50 years now that I've been pretty much. It's my rudder. I like to say. I cheat all the time, but I have a rudder of a certain diet, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't vary from it, because it's why I haven't visited a Western doctor since I was 13. And I
Yeah.
saw that they just wanted to make money off of my stepmother, and they took my appendix out. It didn't hurt. I simply didn't want to go to school, and I made up the story that I had a side ache, which I didn't. So I figured that out quite early, 13.
Mm.
And I haven't taken any aspirin or any drugs or anything in all these years. Food is my medicine, and I try to buy organic. If I eat meat, I really have to have it from a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I've known for years that they just want to make money off of us, and they don't care about us, the
Mm.
establishment, as it's called.
Yeah.
So that's key to. And then the hard thing is, well, it's hard because I feel kind of sheepish when I tell the story, but I had an experience in a classroom when I was at Hilo College, in which, in Rudolf Steiner language, I experienced the etheric Christ, and it was a being that I was very depressed that day, because I realized that people could fool me. That's one of the most painful things you ever learn in this life, is you trust someone, and they fool you. And so I was very depressed, and we were reading about the New Testament. About It was a religious lit class. We just finished doing something on the Bhagavad Gita, and now we were into the New Testament and the lawyer Paul, or Saul, and I suddenly realized, oh, that's why the Christians say that they need a shepherd, is that that we need a guide. and that the Hindus say that you need a guru. You need this guide, because the spiritual path, the way of finding out that we are spiritual beings, is loaded with challenges and pitfalls and temptations and whatever. And that's when I realized, oh, that's why the Christians say they need a shepherd. The moment I thought shepherd, everything changed. I collapsed. The classroom became filled with light for me. I don't think for others. And I remember burying my head because I knew I was going to cry or something. And that's when I saw this being kneeling over me from the ceiling in white robes, and was shining. I mean, just spectacular light. But when I looked up to look at his face, because I knew it was a he, it was just a sun, just a big sun, just blasting out light. And I'm like this in my physical body, but my spiritual body is absolutely gobsmacked, as the British say. I love that phrase, gobsmacked. I just couldn't. It was completely different. Then suddenly, I'm out of my body and I'm floating above by the ceiling, and I don't see that being, but I'm looking at myself and feeling great compassion for the pain I was in. And then I'm back in my body, and then I hear this voice. Then I, there was various inner pictures going on. One being, the voice said, "This is how you died last time." And I'm looking at a little monk in saffron robes with some other monks on a big mountain, maybe Tibet, maybe Nepal, somewhere over there. And there's an earthquake. You can see the earthquake happening. And then these monks just fall, like little umbrellas almost, because their robes are filled with air. And they're going down. And I realized, oh, that was the 1300s. So that was the last time I was alive. So that was taken care of. And then eventually I came to, and my teacher had dismissed the class and was standing over me, waiting to see what I was going to say. And then I said, something just happened that I think it changed me. And he said, "I think I know what happened, but I'm not going to say anything. You need to find out yourself." So I left and I went on my bike and I rode back home where I was staying. And then 3 nights later, I was able to find out. It identified itself because I could feel it like pulling me, but in a good way, in a very good way. And I remember asking, "Who are you? Who are you that you call to me?" And that's when he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And I had never heard that phrase. I had no idea what that meant. But I, the next day, went and asked people, had they ever heard of it? And I finally found someone who had. I mean, most people hadn't. But, it was hippies. It was all the kind of 60s types in Hilo that I hung out with at the Kalakaua, or at the Kaukau Inn. So they said, "Yeah, that's how Jesus Christ identified himself." And then I was like, immediately like, oh no, don't tell me I'm going to have to be a Christian, because I had never met any Christians I really liked. They all seemed so hypocritical. And then the next 2 weeks were just phenomenal in my dreams. Phenomenal. Early Christian times, Roman amphitheaters Christians dying in the it was just all this imagery. And the thing that I need to say is that my teacher, meanwhile, turns out he was a Christian, very nice guy, his wife, etc. But that he nominated me for a Danforth Fellowship. And what the Danforth Fellowship was and is, I think it's still going, is for people who have a spiritual path or who believe in their spiritual beings. And so 3 guys in suits came to interview me. And to this day, I believe they were CIA. And they interviewed me about my experience. And I don't remember anything after entering that room with them and sitting down. I absolutely don't remember anything. I think they wiped my memory. And I, that was it. I then got involved. I had already experienced that LSD thing that I had done. So that was the bedrock of my spirituality. And what has happened since then, besides children helping me to become responsible for them and myself, and various things that I really needed, I needed help with, because I was beautiful and smart, but I was very wounded by my father. So I needed a lot of help from just the people around me. And I got involved in Rudolf Steiner because I had read a book on my way to China and had never arrived in China. I stayed, and life took me in a different way. So I've always followed life because, I've made plans, but truthfully, none of them really happened. It was more something else would come in and say, no, you're going this way.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're going this way. and I have trusted it. So now here we are
Mm-hmm.
in a real dilemma. And having spent all these years writing about geoengineering, I recognize geoengineering as a terrible weapon, a terrible, terrible weapon. On par with maybe the story of Atlantis, wherein the entire world is inundated and whole civilizations vanish overnight. And certain people set out in boats and go, and they see islands, but the islands are really the tops of mountains. The inundation is so severe. So I do see that we are at a huge turning point now.
Yeah.
And so I'm ready because I've spent my entire life getting ready. So I'm not like most people who are now just waking up.
Mm-hmm.
I was awake way before now.
Right.
It's just, the details continue to change.
Yep.
And I've recognized them, and we're dealing with, yes, I know who the enemy is on the human level, the elite bloodlines, the elites that have run this planet for thousands of years. But there are other layers that Rudolf Steiner has informed me of, which are these entities, let's call them. I mean, there's a wonderful term which I love, and I use it in this latest book a bit more liberally than I did in previous books. It's an occult term called egregore. And the egregore is a being that forms through the collective hive mind of the members. So, in other words, Boeing would have an egregore, and they would go in a certain direction according to this collective mind that then is sort of shaped and utilized maybe by the very strongly incarnated occultists who are on the board of Boeing. I definitely put some thought into that because Boeing used to be here in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, it's still here, but not on the scale it was. It moved. And I thought, so it seems to me that these spiritual entities are pretty much running things now. And they're using various people for the different tasks of that. And they are no friend of a true human being. And they are no friend of the higher beings that that comprise a divine universe. There are higher beings up there. Not that I have encountered them. I'm just saying I have gone out of body at times while I've been asleep and gone way up into space. And I have been aware of being surrounded by benign, loving beings. So, with experiences like that, I don't buy this show or charade. But on the other hand, I don't not take it seriously. I take it very seriously because a lot of people, I was just thinking about it the other day on my way home. How many people are killing themselves about now? And I realized we're just not hearing about it. A lot of people are checking out. And that makes things very hard for them.
Yeah.
Once they do that. And I feel for them. So I quickly say a prayer for them at that point when it comes up into my mind. I assume that everything coming up into my mind as I'm proceeding through my day and my work as a writer and whatever, I assume that it's asking for my attention. Christ says at one point, where your attention is, there lies your heart also. That is so true. So when it calls for my attention, I'll just take a few moments and say, help those people.
Yeah.
Let them, pull the wool from their eyes that they are caught in an illusion perpetrated by an entity. Not by them, not by their brain necessarily, not always the CIA, though I can blame the CIA for a whole lot of things. So, with that kind of spiritual life, I don't go to churches. I tried to, but I got tired of being lectured to by what I call churchianity people, to whom the church is. I've had real experiences of divine beings. The church is not a divine being to me at all. It certainly lives a long time, so it has an egregore, like the Catholic Church has a very serious egregore, maybe a whole troop of them, I don't know. But because my grandmother was Romanian, a peasant woman, she was a Roma, she was a gypsy from a Roma lineage. She was clairvoyant. She could see the future. She could see things around people that had things. She would jerk me off buses. And I say, Grandma, this isn't our stop. She'd say, the evil eye. We get off. So, she was very aware in her particular way of thinking. And so she pretty much raised me till I was 9. And I'm like her. I'm a lot like her. I just go with it because life seems to know what I'm doing here. Sometimes much more than I know.
Yeah.
And I would recommend to people to consider a free-flowing spirituality rather than, in America, seems like people always think, oh, what church will I belong to? What organization will I work for? What, it's not about organizations and churches. It's about the whole world is divine. But that means the good and the bad. There are spirits that do not like humanity. And, they don't really touch me because I'm so padded by all my experiences and the life I've lived. But I think people fall into doubt, and then the fear comes in and then they're paralyzed. They're paralyzed, and that's not going to work. Now you've got to come to terms with your life and what you say it is, and you've got to come to terms with what being human means. You can't just say because you have a head and a thorax and arms and legs that you're human. No, that's your body. That's not your humanity. Your humanity is in this body that seems to be what human beings have lived in for millions of years. But you, in your behavior and in what you're encountering in daily life, you need to look further into what being human means. Doesn't always mean compassion and, oh, you poor thing. No. It's a signature of your being that everybody will encounter when they encounter you. And that's what happens for me. I mean, it's a joke that when I go into a place that has no customers, within minutes it's packed. Why? Because of what I'm exuding. It's not about Elana. It's what lives through me because I'm a conduit of spirit, and I live that way, and I welcome it, and that's not something I worry about anymore. I did struggle for years and years because I was very damaged, but everything is put together right now. So
yeah, that's a beautiful.
I'm just gonna ride this wave. I used to be a body surfer. I'm gonna ride this wave out. I'm a warrior, and I'm living in a time that needs warriors like me.
Mm-hmm.
And I support the activities of as many people as I can to encourage them and to dig deep into that humanity, because we're amazing beings.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to see paintings by Raphael and various philosophic works in order to know that. We are extraordinary beings, but most of us are treated like slaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing a lot of this context of who you are and how you orient, because what I've heard from you and seen in your writing is all of the nuts and bolts and stuff that shows you what's behind the curtain, beyond the veil, right? You've put a lot of that together, which is amazing. It's hard to do. And if you were to go and try to give somebody the Cliff Notes broad stroke version of it, which I think we can start to do here, just so they can see how we got ourselves into the predicament we're in and what kind of predicament we might be in. I like for people to have an understanding of what they can consider to do before they enter into that, because it can be a destabilization phase for people and it can ruin your life. And a lot of times I even tell folks like my mother, maybe it's not a good idea. Maybe you should just keep being kind to my niece and my sister and doing all of the things that she's doing. And she has her hands full being a loving human. Maybe she's not built to take on the veil, but there's certain people that are, and they have a larger appetite and capacity to, and just like all of us have unique abilities to take on different heaps during this lifetime. And you've done quite a bit in that arena. And I've talked to some other folks who have too. And I like to find out how they keep their feet on the ground. And so that's nice context. So I'd love to go maybe back, if you will. Something that's always fascinated me, and I can never get my attention away from it fully, is the development of the CIA and the World War II transition phase into this new era of warfare called psychological warfare. I don't think a lot of people are hip to that yet, and people are curious as to how we got so hypnotized in our institutions. And then you talked about even your brief LSD experimentation, how you became part of some form of experimentation from the CIA.
Yeah.
And I love that psychedelic piece, because it's such a huge component to where now here we are, where everybody's pumping psychedelics as the new healing agent of our time. And
Yeah.
I've seen them work in some ways in healing ways, but man, are they used for persuasion, manipulation, and subjugation and all the other things. Can we go into the 1950s and the development of the CIA and then some of the psychedelic MK Ultra beginnings?
Yeah. It's a surprise to most people that the CIA was actually designed as the system it is by the Nazis, by Reinhard Gehlen, to be exact. General Reinhard Gehlen was the SS head of Eastern Europe operations, and he was a very cunning and intelligent man. And he was friends with the Dulles brothers, who basically sold us to the Nazis. And when Kennedy tried to fix that by firing Alan Dulles as head of CIA, you see what happened to him. So the CIA, to me, has always been a Nazi organization, like the SS. It's like we live in a land that's run by the SS. Or the KGB is another one, but more powerful than the KGB. So that's kind of what was going on. And in the 50s, everybody was so glad the war was over, and we were, a chicken in every pot and 2 cars in the garage, and everybody was floating on prosperity. And so everybody went to sleep. Everybody went to sleep during the time that they were setting up, moving the Third Reich to North America. That's what was going on. And I think we can see it more now in Canada because we're not Canadian. We're in America. So we've got our own mythologies and propaganda that we have to dismantle here. But I'm not Canadian, so I can see their propaganda very easily.
Right.
And they are being taken over by, they call it communism. Really doesn't matter what they call it. Communism, socialism, it's the same thing. It's an atheist, absolutely non-spiritual movement that is attempting to turn the human being into something different than it has been for thousands of years. That's the short version. So that's, people want to know. I think Americans are the most hypnotic people I've ever known, and I've lived here all my life. I mean, I lived in Europe for a few years. I lived in England for a few years, not Europe. And England and Europe are not the same at all. So I got outside of the country. I lived in Montreal for a couple of years and was able to look at America from a bit of a distance, but that's about it for me. And so I think I don't want to make people feel bad. I mean, think of how you are when you're driving down the freeway. I'm hypnotic. I know the rules. I have little alert systems that are alert to the lane next to me and the other lane next to me, and and kind of looking forward and backward and that. But it's all on automatic now after all the years I've been driving. You see, it's very hard when you're a conscious being because your consciousness gets accustomed to things. And then if you're not kind of watching it and in charge of it, and you're letting it kind of just roll out, then you can very easily be hypnotic and go to sleep. And that's really what happened is by appealing to our pleasure and our love of convenience and comfort in this country, because we're so materialistic. We've got all these gewgaws that can make us feel, I've got a great lawnmower now, and I've got a car that, talks to me, and, all these things, so that when they moved the Internet of Things into place, nobody really thought about, what it really was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would guess that most of your listeners don't know really what it is. It's a surveillance. It's a tremendous surveillance. Your TV is an Internet of Things, and then you have all these other Internet of nano things, Internet of space, Internet of, So now what is not being translated for you, because the people doing this, the corporations doing this, and the people that they have gobbled up and are under the control of egregores, and have been probably lost their human soul entirely. It's not human anymore. It's sort of putty in the hands of very different beings with different agendas. Then we're using these things, and we're sort of being devoured by the things in our lives, and that's we call that freedom. We call that wealth. I'm not sure that it's really either. In fact, I know it's not. I own next to nothing. I mean, yeah, I stay poor because I didn't want the moral problem of working. I worked in the Waldorf movement for 16 years, started 4 Waldorf schools, that's Rudolf Steiner schools,
Mm-hmm.
for children, and did a lot of work there, but eventually burned out. It was a lot of work because you think you're just there to teach children, but you're really there to bring their parents along as well. So it was a little much for me, and that idea that you join something which then life will get easier. The idea that life gets easier is very appealing to the American, who has been programmed to let them do it. Let them do it, because then you've got more freedom. Well, I don't think that's freedom. It seems they own us, and now we're going to feel the torquing down on us. Right? That's what's going on now. The system is set up. They've got it electromagnetically, and I'm very big on electromagnetics. They've got it set up. That's what my second book goes into, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
I explain how they're locking you down. And they've been doing it, well, since the 90s. I would at least go there. The 90s were when we had a thing called the Revolution in Military Affairs, RMA. And what that meant was the entire military went digital, way ahead of us. Now they're digitalizing us. They're digitalizing disease. They're digitalizing all molecular biology, because they don't want molecular biology human beings anymore. They want digital. They want transhumans. And that's the direction that I am really powering on now, is to wake people up before they won't be able to look at themselves at all.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about, like, the transhumanist movement seems to be the new agenda, and it's a new religion of its own. You've all Noah Harari, all these folks, Ray Kurzweil, you got the WEF talking about it, the Klaus Schwabs. These are the people at least in the limelight, but behind the scenes, I'd like to know who and how does this evolution occur? Like when you had Operation Paperclip and you had the hiring of hundreds, if not thousands, of Nazis who built NASA and all of the space programs and the big tech companies, a lot of people are not aware of any of the beginning phases of the development of tech. And
Right.
so DARPA and HAARP and all of that. Can you go into some of the laying out of the scaffolding, and we'll do like a minor evolutionary path of this developmental phase of technology?
Well, part of the causal agent for that not knowing about all this technology before it's already here. You didn't see it them beginning it. is that we have the National Security Act of 1947. Remember what that is. I mean, it's the big secret maker. So you're in Congress and you're having a hot discussion about some technology, and then it somehow hits some sort of nerve of the military industrial complex and its essential compartmentalization and love of secrecy. And suddenly, oh, session's closed. That can only be discussed privately. So how does democracy do in an environment of a National Security Act like that? Well, it just doesn't. There is no democracy. I haven't seen democracy in America since the sleepy kind of democracy we had in the 1950s, where there was some democracy, definitely, but not now. I haven't seen democracy for years. So how the technology starts is it's a bunch of guys and women, but very few women, who are going at it and have lots of money coming to them from taxpayer money and from big corporations, and then they strike pay dirt on some sort of war. It's always war. It's always bio-warfare or just warfare. That's what gets the big money. So the people running all the technology that's being made are working for war. I mean, you can't work for a corporation pretty much at all, certainly a big corporation, and not have it end up in warfare. That's the key to how America is looked at. This is where they get their war stuff. Why? Because I remember what that British writer who came over to visit Georgia O'Keeffe, what's his name? He came here and he said he looked at the American soul from his perspective of being gifted, and he said that the American soul was a killer, just a killer. And I think he was right, because I think the will element, and this is dipping into my Steiner background, the will, das Will, I think that's in the German, where you get a sense of the will that ran World War II from the German side, from the Nazi side. You see what it can do. It is tremendously powerful. It can make an entire nation serve war. And you get into our education system when you're a kid. Well, you don't see that element of war, do you? You don't, it's teachers, it's boring, and you're not really getting much real learning from the paradigm that operates there. You're trying to get grades, because grades are going to lead to, well, who knows what they lead to. And so you don't really see the will element, because everything's fun, and you've got advertising, and the media is completely running your life, and certainly pulling your kids away from you, because your kids are getting all these commercials and these ads and this whole thing of being beautiful and successful. And so, right away, there are elements that have come into the home and into the psyche of the American that have nothing to do with democracy, nothing to do with high ideals, nothing to do with God or spirituality. So, and people think, well, that's okay because the Joneses have it and the Smiths next door have it, so it must be okay. Otherwise, the authority figures would tell us it wasn't okay. And this trust, this amazing trust even of the present Generation X that I encounter here in the town I live in, their trust in the establishment that we used to not trust at all is just mind-boggling. I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh well, I had someone here tell me, Elana, why are you writing all these books on geoengineering? They wouldn't do that to us without telling us.
Right.
And that's kind of we're back to the National Security Act. If we could just get rid of that, but then we wouldn't be number one or whatever number we are now. We wouldn't have the power that we need in order to run everything. So, we need to wake up. But if you buy the system and you make do with the system, it's going to get you eventually. It's going to crawl inside your skin, just like Mr. Harari said, under the skin. And that's what's happening now, because this, I assume you may not know, or you may know, but this geoengineering is dropping a ton of nanotechnology on us, and synthetic biology. And we're breathing it in, and it's going into our blood system, and then it's going beyond the blood-brain barrier because it's nano-sized. And then they have all of Elon Musk's satellites up there, the CubeSats, that are all on the frequency of your particular, they call the evoked potential. So they can feed right into your neural system. They don't need neural mesh or surgery or anything. No, they have the frequency. They have the frequency. And that's, how long's that been going on? Well, I'd say done deal, 30 years, done deal. But it's certainly been developed for the last, I don't know, 75 years. It's a guess. So, when people say, well, I just don't know, and Elana, be gentle with me, that, but why don't you know? Why don't you know? Because you haven't really been interested in seeing that the power mongers love it when people are fed well and have lots of conveniences, and then they lie to you as to why things might go wrong now and then. But they're liars from the beginning. I don't know. Am I just sort of some sort of person who doesn't believe anyone? No, I know when I'm being lied to.
Yeah, and I feel like more people are becoming aware, like we talked about in the beginning, because of COVID. It was just such a blatant thing, and now everybody's seeing the repercussions for that, and the lack of accountability, and the fact that no one's been arrested for the Epstein stuff, and people are just starting to realize, oh my gosh, this stuff's happening, but yet the quick, convenient thing to do is to ignore it, put your head in the sand, and go watch the next Netflix show,
Well,
or the next
scary.
dopamine hit. It's terrifying for people.
It's
And what
scary.
can you do about it?
If you haven't
consume this stuff, the average person can't go be a teacher or a first responder or a family.
Well, no, you're using names. Don't use names. It's like I was on a radio show a couple of days ago, and the guy said, well, so-and-so says that we only have 4 years until, I can't remember what it was, some terrible thing. And I said, well, hey, you've got 4 years. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you've got 4 years. And I think that's what we want to get to today is, what is a life worth? You can't start over. No, you can't start over. But you can take up a gauntlet and decide you're not going to put it down, and you're going to find ways to really be sharply aware when you've been sleeping for decades. You can do that because you're a human being. That's what's different about us. The cow that's been on the lead, in the corral forever, is not going to go wandering off. That cow knows, okay, I'm on a lead, and then this is my life. But you're not a cow. You're a human being. And a lot of people, I think, I I certainly am seeing evidence, and I have a book I would recommend, but I won't get it out now. Uh, I am seeing people who I don't think are human anymore. I think they've sold their souls, or they've allowed them to be taken, however you want to say it. How do I know they're not human? Well, they're sort of on automatic. And if things don't go automatic in your slight conversation with them or your slight interaction with them in public, well, they don't know what to do. So they usually try to get away from me. And it isn't like I'm blasting them with what I'm blasting out today. I'm not. I'm just being nice. But there's, I've got probably a frequency that is a little irritating to them, or something along those lines, because as Tesla said, if you've got to think in terms of vibration and frequency in order to understand what's going on in this universe. You can't do without that. Otherwise, you're just obeying the media.
Yeah.
And the media is not God. I have news for people. If I'm talking to a 15-year-old, I can see how they could be kind of deluded about that, but not people who've been here for decades.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. I know you've probably come across Dr. Jack Kruse. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yeah, I listen to
Yeah.
him all the time.
Yeah, he's a good candidate for this conversation. He's someone that has thought about it for years and known a lot of insights. But one of the major things that I've taken from his work is the light piece and how much that plays a role in our cognition, in our ability to think, in our ability to feel good and be healthy. And the amount of money and propaganda that's been pushed to block that component, because when you go into light and you said vibration, frequency, and you think in those terms, we are light beings. And you start
Yes.
to think about the inside behavior, how we're all inside. We're under LED flickering lights. We're on blue lit screens. There's war on light. You have this idea
Yeah.
that you're going to be outside, you're going to wear sunscreen, you need to wear sunglasses. And I think that those first steps of getting back to nature, which is the first thing you talked about, are the most crucial things, because that's where you have your humanity back, is just getting back out into the natural element, even though it's not natural anymore. Like you talked about the ionized sky. When I go outside now, it's not a natural sky anymore. But it's still
No.
so important for me to get my morning sunrise, to get my feet on the ground, to get unplugged from tech, and to have access to that deeper component of myself that I can
Mm-hmm.
still feel free. And I think that if we are going to have any sovereignty at all, we have to start with those crucial fundamentals. And I
Mm-hmm.
meet so many people that think I'm completely nuts because I'm out standing on a rock barefoot getting sunlight. They're like, what are you doing?
And
And it's
grounding.
and
Yeah.
grounding. And people think that's nuts when I'm watching other people drive in rush hour to an LED lit gym environment to be, moving their body on a bicycle that's indoors. And like I said before this conversation, I was out biking for 2.5 hours outside. I don't get how you could be on an indoor bike when you could be on an outdoor bike. Just basic fundamentals. None of it makes sense, but we've just consumed this idea of what we consider to be normal. And I remember reading a book by John Taylor Gatto called Weapons of Mass Instruction. And
Yeah.
it taught me to pay attention to the institutional history of the institutions being indoctrination stations, which all of us have been byproducts of. And it's not that we're victims, but we have to remember that we have so much unlearning to do and clearing of the space to then have access to what the truth even is. Because if you're just bombarded with your operating system, and we have been MK Ultra 5.0, then there is no freedom and sovereignty and ability to wake up. And so it's a deep, dark hole that you have to step into, but it requires courage and responsibility. And even if people don't buy into your books and all the things that you're going to say 100%, because you're going to be off target sometimes with a couple things. I love to have conversations with people like you and a lot of other people that are thinking broadly and differently and on the edge, because I think those are the folks that we have to learn from now. We can't trust the authority. We obviously
Yeah.
can't trust.
Yeah.
They still have Anthony Fauci on the media telling us to wear masks right now for the hantavirus, and people are listening to this guy. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's programming. It's
Yeah.
programming, and I spent 10 years on MK Ultra, so I'm pretty versed in what programming is and how it differs from conditioning. We're all conditioned, but hopefully, I mean, now I can't really say this because they have the CubeSats up there, and they're lowering the range constantly. People are being programmed, whole regions are being programmed with frequency that will put them in a certain mindset. The Schumann resonance, 11.8, is our brain frequency, and now the Schumann resonance is being messed with all the time. And we have, as Clifford Carnicom, the scientist I work with, determined years ago, we are constantly affected by a 4 hertz pulse put out by the HAARP system, and 4 hertz is actually just between the dream and sleep. So we have all that against us, and because it's really too late to think that we could stop this technology. It's all been very carefully wirelessly wired. And they have all these massive data centers, which are not for data center at all. They're for the mind control. But now that it's all going up, and there really is no way out of it. But there are ways that if we commit ourselves to a certain lifestyle and do not veer from it, we will develop stronger wills. And that's what I'm really looking for in people. Yes, I would like to talk about thinking, because most people think thinking is either the kind of I'm going to pick up a quart of milk at the store thinking, or intellectual thinking, like grad school stuff. But no, the thinking, and when I'm talking about really doing something in your life in the next 4 years, or whatever the time frame you think the disaster is coming in, the point is to be as much of a human being, what you really are, as you possibly can while you're in the body before you die. Because that's why we're here, is to have this bodily experience in a 3D, 4D world, coupled with time, and to build these deep abilities in that are part of our spiritual nature, not just our physical nature. I think that's probably the most sleep-inducing part of Americans, is that they really believe that the material world is all there is, all there is. And I would say that even people who go to church and stuff like that, I think they would be living entirely differently if they knew that we are not just physical beings. Like, when Madonna sang in the 80s, I'm a material girl. So that's kind of how I look at it. Is what has changed in me from Rudolf Steiner is, and then of course the Christ thing was very much my whole being, but the Steiner thing has been primarily changing my ability to think in new ways, in a different way anyway. And it's partially a heart thinking that I'm doing through exercises and for, just my work with Steiner's ideas. So that's what I mean by, people can pick that up now at any age. And even for the younger listeners, if you're young, pick it up, because, it's not just for, people who've missed the boat. It's for everyone to really get hold of and grapple with the assault we are undergoing now, because this is war we're in. We're in a very serious war where Homo sapiens may not make it. And if Homo sapiens doesn't make it, then there will be no more reincarnation. All sorts of things will change. And that's really when I became exceedingly serious about what I'm doing, is when I realized that. And I, I work constantly on this. I don't think that there's anything more important to do. I mean, take a 2.5 hour bike ride. Yeah, that sounds great. But for saving humanity, I wouldn't think in terms of organizations or degrees or any of that. That's all nonsense now. It's really how human you're willing to set your life up to be. And, first thing, get rid of your cell phone. That's the most radical thing I always say. And I know people won't, but it's a weapon system. And the TV is a weapon system. I've never owned either. I have a landline, and I have my computer because I'm a writer, and it gets me on the internet for research, and I have the discipline to not go much further than that. So, there are things that if you could do those, some things might open up for you that you had forgotten about.
Right. Yeah, I would love to ask you about, I've never heard you speak to ancient civilizations and the fact that we've been doing this a very long time and we've forgotten our past. And when you look at ancient monuments and how they were developed at a certain point in time, I'm always curious about that subject, that we were very advanced at certain phases of human history and then we've forgotten our past. And I'm curious what your perspective is on ancient civilizations and maybe higher states of consciousness, if any, that we've maybe reached and forgotten. Because we were talking about bloodlines and stuff and who really controls this stuff. So maybe if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Oh, sure. I mean, of course, we've had higher civilizations than this. This is close to the nadir of all civilizations.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it really, if you're talking about true human civilizations.
Right.
See, generally, when people think of civilization, they think of technology, because if you have a technology that's still just dependent on the wheel and there's nothing else, then you're going to have a certain level of attainment. But what's the human level there? How is the human level? How how are people treating each other? What kind of enlightened ideas do they have, or don't they have any? That sort of thing. If we can think about as to whether ancient civilizations have been razed to the ground by the same bastards that we're dealing with now, well, I could go for that, because these guys are primarily sociopaths, and they seem to only think about their own attainments, and I personally don't call that very human. That is much more something that I might hear from a dark species, a dark entity of sorts that constantly draws you back to this one, and to hell with everybody else. So I definitely feel we've had higher civilizations. That's easy because we're at the very low now, at the very, very low, here in America anyway. And you see that, and I'm surrounded by homeless people outside. I live in an apartment building where I only have to pay $370 a month rent. I got out of the mortgage business, the sense of owning a home, quote unquote, if one ever owns anything here, and now, it's a good apartment building, but I'm surrounded by people who are homeless, and what's up with that? What kind of civilization allows that? You see what I mean? So I very much, do I want to live in those other times? No. Is that all there is recycling of technologies and different levels of civilization? No. There's something new developing now, but you would be hard-pressed to see it operating at all here in America. And Rudolf Steiner calls it the consciousness soul. It's a new type, a new part of the soul that began developing in the 1400s, and then has been consciously by secret societies. And secret societies is a very big part of any commentary on any civilization, because the secret societies, much like many of the other religious or spiritual organizations, like the churches and things, it's really degenerated. These secret societies have degenerated to self-interest, power, etc. Like, just look at the Freemasons. They used to be an honorable organization. They are no more, because they take part in pedophilia, they take part in child trafficking, they take part in all manner of theft and murder and mayhem. So, that if you could imagine a time when you couldn't serve in public office unless you were considered a good person. And I don't mean he's so nice. I hate that word nice. But he's nice. Well, what does that mean? Doesn't tell me anything. So, it's a matter of, I would like it if they would tell us the truth. But again, and the Freemasons I've used their name purposely, because if there's anyone in charge of our actual historical record of, like I've been seeing some of these videos now of these amazing buildings that are all over the United States with Rococo types of decoration on the outside and amazing architecture, and it's like, wait a minute, where did these come from? Mm-hmm. And were there more? Only they've been destroyed, or why did they leave even a few? That would be that somebody in some secret society, some poobah who had a lot of power, decided that we would start over. We'll start over. And this time we're going to do it this way. We've got a new idea we want to try out, and blah, blah, blah. I think that to not believe that is naive, because we've been here a long time. And some of those structures, certainly architecture, whenever you think architecture, you've got to think Freemasons, because they are the Masons.
Right.
They're the ones who make the, and they have Gautu, I think is the name of their god, the god architect, the great architect of the universe, Gautu. And they're the ones that wield tremendous power now. I've come under them. I've been targeted by them, seriously targeted, to where I had to go and get my shoulder put back in place at a hospital. So, I understand that we're in a process of breakdown now. And you know that, right? I'm sure you do. Well, we're in a process of breakdown, not because, we've blown it and there's nothing we can do about this. No, because somebody somewhere has decided we're toast. We're gone. We're bringing in a transhuman model, and we will keep some of the Homo sapiens around as long as it takes for us to get, and the transhumanism is not an idea in the future that hasn't been taken up. Ever since the geoengineering started, we've been altered, you and I, all of us here, because we're breathing this air filled with things being dropped on us by the geoengineering. And then there's the 200 years of vaccinations, quote unquote. Yeah, you get vaccinated the moment you arrive on planet Earth in the hospital, right? You get like a whole bunch of them. And then they want you for 75 total to the time you're 12 years old. What the heck? So obviously there's something not human going on here, but I don't need to import aliens from Alpha Centauri. I really feel it's entities like the egregore, a collective entity. Some collectives, as you know, like the military, you cannot leave them because one day you decide you don't want to be a soldier anymore. They're going to be after you, and you're going to be made to suffer. So there are some egregores that are very, very powerful in the running of big, big civilizations like the one we have here in America. Um, does that give you an idea about the my great respect for the past? I mean, we have never been lower.
Right.
I have a degree, a master's in history. I mean, I have to say I've read tons and tons and tons of history books, and we have never been lower than this.
Right. Yeah, definitely seems like we've completely lost our connection to heart-centered consciousness and connection to the earth. And
Yeah,
so there's this
yeah,
this mapping and language obsession where everybody's completely obsessed with the stories, and the relationship that we have to our stories is what creates the fantasy that we indulge. And so I'm always careful what I believe and what I subscribe to, and I'm completely willing to even listen to all of your perspectives and hold it here, and at the same exact time be like, at the real core of what I know to be certainly true is that the universe is complex as all, imagination could even, it goes beyond the imagination, because I've had my own experiences and I'm like, you know what, nobody truly knows what's going on. There are orchestrated efforts and there's elements of deities that I do think are involved, but I'm also like, don't give it power, because whatever you give power to is what controls your life, and when I hear people that help lay out a lot of the stuff that's going on with the spraying of the skies and the technology and all the patents with DARPA and HAARP and all this stuff, it's there. And that the military industrial complex is a giant organization and there's people inside of the organization being driven for their own incentives. And I think it's just gotten so far off the rails and it's gotten so ramped up, and exponential tech's gotten so fast and so furious. It's not going to stop. So, but I also have my feet on the ground and I'm connected to something much older. And so I'm not too worried about any of it. I'm more interested in seeking the truth and finding out more and more about it. And then, like, what can we do on the most practical level, which is why I share breath work with people to help connect with something that regulates their actual nervous system and get outside, return to nature. And then on the fire truck, it's like, there's actual homelessness and, people overdosing on fentanyl. So let's put our hands on them and get that shit sorted out. But in the meantime, it's like, also, we've been doing this for a long time. So I'm just like here for a little snap. And so I can't control the ocean, but I'm willing to surf and play and get involved. But you have a lot of insight and knowledge, and a lot of people have never spent even a percentage of thinking about what you're thinking about, and I find it so fascinating that you
yeah,
also have faith involved in it too. You're very grounded. Most people that go anywhere near the subject matter, it creates them into a spin,
yeah.
So
It's a mission for me. It's a mission, and when I say that, I'm not using it lightly. It's almost like a God-given mission. I mean, that's the seriousness of it. I have tried to. There are other things I could be doing than writing geoengineering books. I'll tell you,
yeah.
but I have had to nail that baby down because I realize the extraordinary danger of it. In fact, this could be a redo of Atlantis. I mean, I think they had the same technology. I do.
Mm,
Everything that I've read from Plantagenet, familiar with that
yeah.
old guy?
Yeah.
About Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
It it correlates with what I know, and I know a lot about geoengineering and about the HAARP system. So it's a very corollary. Yeah, very corollary. So is it too much imagination to imagine that those creeps that did that to most of the known world of those floods that are in many hundreds of myths all over the world, uh, that they're back and they have ideas that they'll do it right this time, maybe, or
Mm.
maybe they'll wipe out Homo sapiens. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. What it's frustrating to me is that people still buy into identity politics and left and right and blue and red, and that they think someone like Donald Trump's going to come and make a difference. That's the most frustrating part, because that's MK Ultra all the way down, right? It's like to
Yeah.
believe that one person's going to get into a position of power and that they're going to create change from the outside. It's such an illusion, and it's so obvious at this point, even for people that are Trumpers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, it's how big you build your world. I mean, I know people here in the apartment, older women who get into these futzes of saying bad things about each other, and then have to clean that up. It's like kind of like, whoa, why did you go there in the first place? I mean, isn't there something bigger to think about than you don't like that person? I mean,
yeah,
it's how big your world is, and most people's world is pretty small.
yeah. I had a list here that I wanted to make sure. What did you think about Robert O. Becker? And I don't know if you ever read Going Somewhere by Andrew Marino. You ever hear of that?
No, not the Andrew, but certainly Becker. I'm very familiar with.
Okay, you will
Um,
love it if you ever get around to it. Andrew Marino spent, I think, 17 years in his lab as his like apprentice and number one guy working with him. And, as a biophysicist, he ended up getting his law degree to go and sue the companies because he saw what happened with Becker, with them shutting down his lab and all of that. And so
yeah.
he wrote a really cool book about the whole issue itself that Becker was dealing with. And I actually had him on the podcast. He was fantastic. And
Let me write down his name.
yeah,
Tell me again.
Andrew A. Marino. And the book is called Going Somewhere, A Life in Science. And that's a really key point in our history with the deployment of the electric grid,
Oh
And
yeah.
when we were starting to learn about the elements of electricity on our body and on our mind and the negatives of it and all of that. And that's what a lot of your work speaks to. So I was just curious about your thoughts on Becker and the CIA's involvement with all of that to
Becker
shut it
is
down.
invaluable. Especially well, in both books. I've quoted from both books liberally, I'm sure. But let me tell you what I feel about the electromagnetic piece of all this is it's a lot of people are thinking genetics regarding like the shot, like the mRNA. They're really pushing the mRNA. They're forgetting that some people looked at various serums and there was no mRNA in them at all. So what's going on there? They're not primarily using genetics. They are primarily using 5G and 6G. That's the primary for running transhumanism. They're going to depend on the nanotech that's in the bodies that's so easily programmed and works in hive minds. You can't see a nano soldier, for example, or a nano Borg. You can't see it, but it works in common with other Borgs. And where you really can see it, I don't know that it's up anymore. I haven't checked lately, but there is a video that a clip of a video that shows embers. It was the California fires. In fact, it was probably the Paradise
Palisades.
fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paris. No, not Palisades.
Okay.
Paradise. Paradise was sooner than that one.
Yeah.
2017. So you see the embers just sort of blowing away. The drone camera is on a piece of highway. It's dark, and you see these embers. You think they're embers, and they're now skittling off to the edge, and they're getting off, and then so the camera follows them, and then they form a phalanx, a literal Roman phalanx, and they march forward, and some of them go off and they crawl up a wall of a home there in this expensive area. and they ignite a fire. They ignite it. And then the rest of them continue down and skip the next house and then go to the next one. So you realize that, oh, these are not embers. This is nanotechnology. And they are being, the programmers and those that are running them are sitting at monitors somewhere far distant. Or maybe it's an AI, but I highly doubt it. And they're destroying this house, but leaving that one because that one doesn't have to be destroyed. And then they go to the next one, and so that's where you realize how they work. And then you think, oh, they're in my body. Do I know that? Have I seen them? No, I haven't, but I understand how they work. It's kind of like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, isn't it? You come across a murder. Someone's been murdered, but the murderer is gone. The gun's not there. You're going to have to put things together by your analysis of the environment. That's how I work. Is exactly that way. I can figure out what this tech is doing as long as I understand the elements of the technology, and then and then spend 20 years figuring out all the stuff that has come from it, and continues to. They're like the fires, that I was going to go into. The fires are geoengineered, and they're triggered from the upper atmosphere, but they will. The reason that they ignite so nicely on like at Maui in that wonderful book that I got out to just flash that by Michelle Melendez. That can you see that?
Yep.
Um,
The land grab.
Yeah, is that because the geoengineering and Maui is extraordinarily geoengineered. I'm not sure why. I came across something in here I wanted to read to you. Large areas right outside Lahaina appear to be proposed developments, which likely were opposed by the current residents and conveniently positioned to quickly get the go-ahead now that the opposition has been literally wiped off the map. Looks like the Hawaiian Homelands Department is going to move Hawaiians from the lands that they used to own to housing where the land is owned by the government. But the part I wanted to, the wildfires, these are the new prescribed burns. I can't find that one. I have a whole chapter in this book about the fires, and it's really it's really good. I'm sorry, I can't find it now. So I don't remember what else I was talking about.
A little bit more too. Maybe talk a little bit about how direct energy weapons work and things like Havana syndrome. A lot of people have never heard of that if I bring it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Havana syndrome, because that's Dr. Len Baer, MD. He's following that because he was targeted with it. He has Havana syndrome. He is noticing a diminishment in his mental ability. Great guy. Very, very much the kind of person who will not give up on what he's doing to get the government to recognize civilians that are because if he can get civilians recognized, then how many hundreds of thousands of people are of targeted individuals that have been made fun of and ridiculed and not believed will then have maybe some government money even for all the things that they need, given that they're being used for, and this is with directed energy weapons, this is directly relevant. They use targeted individuals. The military and police and intelligence agencies use targeted individuals to train their officers in how to do it. in how you target people. So that it isn't always about, oh, this person did something wrong, or this is someone that the government's concerned about. No, it's actually just using them, or they've got a new piece of equipment and they want to test it out and see how it goes. And now they don't have to pay anybody to do that, because how could you pay someone that kind of damage that's going to be done to their organism? You wouldn't be allowed. So that's why most targeting goes on. And the DEWs, they vary, because I've always said that anything electromagnetic can be used as a DEW now. It isn't just the LRADs and the things that are known to mess with people's nervous systems, where it was built into the weapon. Now, all they need is an environment in which they can take over an Internet of Things kind of thing and grab the energy from it, and then maybe have some sort of a device that will direct it as a beam. That's all they need. And so now, when you're thinking about moving into, say, a new apartment, it would be good to see what is going on outside the apartment. Like, how close are you to a tower, one of the microwave towers? What kind of wiring do you have in the room in which you're maybe going to do your work, like I do? I had an electromagnetic electrician come and check my apartment out when I moved in to see where my challenges would be and see how I could protect myself. It just sort of goes with the territory now for me. And I recommend that to other people, because now what's happening is they are, ever since Trump announced the Stargate AI, I think that's the key. I think Stargate AI is the apotheosis, if you can deal with that word, of what I talk about in my second book, the Space Fence Lockdown. So, and that's the electromagnetic part. The transhumans and whatever is transhuman about us now, after all these years, and they haven't told us about it, but we've been worked on by the geoengineering. And then with the vax, what happened is they vaxed into people. They say 5.5 billion people. I don't know if it's that many, but they vaxed into them the operating system that they needed to be in there, now that the geoengineering has prepped us for being run externally. And that's what's going on now, is they're moving into that system. And that's what the data centers are all about, is they're going to run all the data from being in the bodies and brains of billions of people. They're going to run it through there. That's what we're heading. That's what is. I'm convinced that when Trump did that scene, and did you see that scene, his second day in office this time, when he's standing behind the podium announcing Stargate AI? Stargate is a word we used for mind control back in 1977, by the way, and so he's resurrecting that term and subconscious relating to this program that now these billionaires from Silicon Valley are going to pay for with, I don't know, 50 billion or 500 billion or whatever. And when he set that up, I looked at it, it was like a Freemason ritual. It was set up by whoever planned that filming and world distribution of Trump with these three billionaires, Sam Altman, etc. They set it up as a Freemason ritual, and I just couldn't get over it. It was the announcement of the apotheosis of the space fence lockdown, what I used to call that.
Yeah.
Did that make sense to you?
Yeah, enough for me. I'm sure people are going to wonder more about it. What it is it's a spark of interest to a lot of people if they aren't curious enough to go further. You have to go further
Yeah.
and further with everything, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear that buzzing in the background. No, good.
I don't. I
Good.
don't.
I hear it, but
Oh, I'm
it's a
sorry.
lawnmower, but it's all good. I'm glad you can't.
Oh, okay. It's just a lawnmower. Okay.
I was going to ask you about these scientists that are being killed. What is your perspective on that right now?
Which ones? Do
Well,
you want
there's
to?
physicists and all these people with anti-gravity and different folks. It seems like they're just getting killed, and
There,
they're supposedly suicides and blown up cars.
there are
And
people who don't want to go with the program because they are finally figuring it out. What they signed up to is going in a direction they don't want to go, and so death is the only way out for them.
yeah,
That's my opinion.
right. And what about the compromisation of podcast platforms? Even I've been kicked off TikTok for having people talk about geoengineering and cloud seeding and then algorithmically shadow banned. And then you have the big platforms like the Joe Rogans and the Sean Ryans that seem to be very careful now. You can tell like who they have on seems to be
Oh
somewhat.
yeah.
So what is your perspective on
Oh,
censorship
well, it's all
and
controlled.
compromised? Yeah, it's all
It's all
controlled.
controlled. There's
Yeah.
nothing free. And I'm interested in who was the geoengineering person that they took issue with. Was that Ariana?
Believe it or not, it was James, is it Fleming? Remember the one who's actually pretty conservative with modern day topics, but he's an old school guy, but he talks more about the history of Operation Popeye and a lot of the history of military use and just some of the just
Oh,
nuts and
good.
bolts and patents of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I put a couple clips up on TikTok, immediately removed, and uh, I've had a lot of
Yeah.
cancer conversations completely removed. Those are the big
Yeah.
ones right now, and I've had like Peter McCullough and a lot of the COVID conversations pulled, and so my channel's been completely shadow banned. But how do you deal with censorship?
Well, for me, I'm going on like your podcast and other podcasts, knowing full well that I will not be invited to the big shows because I'm on some sort of blacklist because of
Mm-hmm.
how far I take the geoengineering. I take it all the way to synthetic biology. And they don't mind if I would just talk about like cloud seeding or something, but I have never been, I'm a persona non gratis, and I understand why, because they don't want people to know this, and they don't seem to mind podcasts so far, and I just accept it, and I may have lived longer uh, by not pushing to be more of a personality. I don't know if that's true, but I definitely have been hit several times. And most recently, it was quite extraordinary where I lost blood. I lost over a pint of blood. So I understand what's going on. And sometimes I feel like they really like it that I understand what's going on because, I think I don't know, maybe I've got the Stockholm syndrome, but I feel like they kind of like me. And they really don't want to off me and they really don't want to, but I mean, you make up whatever gets you to keep doing it because I don't care about the danger. I really feel that I'm not in charge of my death, even if I were just like a regular person. Do you really know when your death is going to be? Probably not, because it's in charge. Something else is in charge of how long you're here. It seems to me. So I don't really worry about it, but I try to stay safe as I can. I'm not taking inordinate risks. If I speak the truth, a lot of times people, you've noticed it, there's a certain level people can't go beyond. So I might say something really outrageous that, is scary stuff, but it's so out of their ken that they kind of let it go.
Mm-hmm. That's typical.
And I don't think there's any way. I don't think there's any way out of this now. I certainly have. I used to be that people. One of the first questions they'd ask me on radio shows or podcasts years ago was, "Well, Elana, how are we going to get out of this?" Well, I'd say, I don't think we are. I've been yelling and shouting about this for several years, and nothing's happened. And even when the geoengineering, you probably know this, that there's a wonderful site run by Jolie Diane, whom I kind of know, called Zero Geoengineering. That would be what I'd recommend for people to go to see what's going on with geoengineering, the real thing. But not in the sense that I'm going into it. She's not digging in. She's giving documentation. She's talking about the various states that are now trying to get their legislatures to ban geoengineering, ban solar radiation management and all those over their state. But it's not going to happen that they're going to get rid of the chemtrails, because the chemtrails are loaded with aluminum oxide, and now there's sulfur in it, and there's different things, different ingredients, that some of which have to do with cloud seeding and prepping the area for an assault, like a big flood, like they did in North Carolina. Some of it's having to do with here. I can always tell when it's going to rain the following day, because they're going to load the sky up with all the so-called cloud seeding. But in that chemical mush is also Big Pharma's decisions about how to treat the population below with various chemicals, and that's in it as well. So there's no way they're gonna give that up. And we've been breathing it for 2 decades, close to 3 decades. This chemical soup that Big Pharma and the military have cooked up, and it's turning us into transhumans. And part of the hard part about the transhuman is that they're going to change our blood system and our nervous system, and our eventually our organs, in order to, and I always name this, though it's not the primary reason, I don't think, but getting beyond the Van Allen belts into space is still a huge problem. No human being has been in space, unless they're up there in their plasma body, like I was when I went up there several times. That's where the transhuman is going to be very valuable, because it's going to be entirely synthetic. It's a synthetic being, not a human being at all. But it'll kind of look like a human being, and that'll make people more comfortable dealing with it.
It's fascinating. Yeah, what would be some good resources besides your work that you could start people on if they were getting curious about some of the things we've spoken to?
Well, there's a book I want you to know about. It just came out. I know it's not a person, but it's a book. So this just came out, and she
What's
is
it
a
called? Something
it's
nano.
called nano microscopy investigations. And what it is masses of pictures.
Wow.
Can you see?
Yeah, it's a beautiful book.
It's beautiful. She did it all herself.
Who is
she's
that
amazing.
author?
Well, she doesn't really want you to know
I
her
see.
name.
Oh, cool. She's sort of incognito.
But
What an amazing piece.
She's known as Tree Girl, and then she's written all the text.
Wow, it looks awesome.
Yeah, she's a professional nature photographer, and these are all from about 10 people in the microscopy group that I've been involved with for the last 2 years, that meet sort of, the nexus is in Australia. And but the important thing is, this is all in our blood. Our blood's not supposed to have this stuff.
Wow.
Our blood is supposed to have, just red blood vessels, a few white. See what's happening? We're being
Yeah.
transformed. We're being transformed into technology. That's what you're looking at. And this certainly,
Jeez.
if
Those are
if you
impressive.
really realize what this is, they're picking up, and the book itself is, I think it's $45, and you get it at her website, which is, hold on, her website is called Unhackable Animal. Unhackable
Cool.
Animal. That's what she wants to be known as,
I wonder if she
too.
would do an anonymous podcast without video, just to have her
She
spoken
might.
word.
She might. She might. She
Um,
has.
it's
She
very
has
similar to.
electronics.
It looks like Veda Austin's book in a way, the picture book of all the microscopic pictures of water.
Oh, I'd like to see that. Veda Austin.
Oh, she's incredible. She does like this microscopic photography of water with all these different things, elements of influence on the water, negative and
Yeah.
positive, to show how we are water and everything's conscious. And you would really appreciate her.
Oh, yeah. No, her name is familiar to me. I just hadn't
Yeah.
realized she had a picture book. So, like this.
Mm.
Vesicles and other frameworks. Anyway, the experience I had where I lost a pint of blood is sort of because of my work on this stuff.
Oh,
And I think I
interesting.
was targeted and made to bleed. And I eventually found a solution for it without going to a hospital. That's the
Wow.
key, is to stay out of the hospitals. They're places of death. And for people like me, I couldn't. I'm not vaccinated, and I could not afford to have them put vaccinated blood in me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did make it through that. Pretty cool,
Wow.
huh?
That's incredible
So
looking.
that's someone, and I can ask her. She's a worker. She loves to work.
Cool.
She's always working. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other influences or people you think people should
Oh,
go and
Clifford
discover?
Carnicum. Yes.
Okay.
You want to see how all this fits together, he would be the only one that I could say, because his website is carnicuminstitute.org. And it's there that you'll see 450 papers that he's written, masses of photographs, all the way from the early days of finding that the chemtrails that were going over northern New Mexico were leaving detritus that was very concerning, including Morgellons. Remember Morgellons? To today, and what
Wow.
he's finding in live blood. It's the
Fascinating.
same. It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same stuff.
Okay.
So Big Pharma is running it all. Big Pharma is the largest lobbyist, even beyond AIPAC, which I consider to be very large, in Washington, D.C. Our country is run by Big Pharma.
Yeah. So where can people find your website's no longer there, the .com. Where can people
It's
find your
gone.
work?
Yeah, I have someone in Germany who has volunteered to make me a website for free, so I'm excited about that. Yeah, go to my Patreon site. It's Elana. Just do a search for Elana Freeland and Patreon. You'll come to my Patreon site, and I comment daily because a lot of people send me stuff, and I'll pick out a few things. And like I'm trying to educate people about food right now, because food is my primary medicine. I don't take supplements per se. I buy organic food, and I run my diet in a specific way, and that's why I've been able to stay out of the Western medical system, I feel. So I comment on food a lot, and then on geoengineering, of course, and definitely what you were talking about with the directed energy weapons. I keep up on all that.
Mm-hmm.
Anything
Cool.
electromagnetic.
Yeah. I ask all of my guests, if you were going to die today and this was the last thing you could say to the world, what would you share?
Join me in being human, please. Really, full-blooded human. Full-blood. That would be a great bumper sticker. Full-blooded human, yeah.
I love it. I appreciate your time today. I mean, we went really broad stroke because you go deep into this stuff, but it was nice to hear
Yeah.
a little bit about your beginnings and how you orient.
Uh-huh.
So I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be lives like mine again. I mean, maybe every generation can say that, but I definitely know that we passed into the electronic age during my lifetime, and I was able to experience life without electronics, particularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 50s.
Beautiful.
Thank
So it was
you.
fun
Thank you,
chatting
Brian.
with you. Yeah. Thank you for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it and subscribe to the show and rate the show. That helps people to discover it. And enjoy the next episode.
What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination of some sort.